Football fans, it's that time of week again. It is Thursday. Time to get ready for the NFL week ahead of us. We got an awesome Thursday night football game between the Seahawks and the 49ers. Who is the better story, Brock Purdy or Geno Smith? Then we are going to look at the wild card teams in both conferences and pick out which team has the best chance to make a Super Bowl run from a wild card spot. And then finally, our favorite games of week 15. It's crunch time in the NFL, everybody. Let's roll.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Football fans excited to kick off the NFL week here on a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. I'm one of your local experts, Tyler Rowland, here with my co-host, local expert Alex Clancy, ready to break down the week ahead. So excited for this Thursday night football game. We got a good one between San Francisco and Seattle. Before we dive into it, do want to let you know that today's episode of Locked On NFL is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. You pick 2 to 5 players. If they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com. Promo code Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On NFL your first listen every day. Make sure you subscribe for Monday through Friday, year-round NFL content on all platforms. Alex, as our resident expert on the NFC West, you probably know more about these two teams than just about anybody except the Locked On hosts that actually cover those teams. You had a great point before we got going that the big storyline in this game is probably the quarterback position. What's the better story, Brock Purdy's recent play or Geno Smith's extended resurgence of his career?
I mean, I think it's you got to give Geno Smith the credit where it's due. He's done it the whole season, even though they've slipped a little bit. They're out of a playoff spot right now at 7-6. But this is not what was supposed to happen. This is not, because it would have happened at some point earlier with Geno Smith if it was supposed to happen. The dude has made no money on the quarterback spectrum his entire career. I think this is his 10th year. He's made 18 million or 18. I think that was the number. And what he's done is added stability into an organization that was completely in flux once they traded Russell Wilson. And it was probably in flux before that. Check out Corbin Smith, Locked on Seahawks. He has plenty of takes about the pre and post Russell Wilson. And, Brock Purdy's fun. He was Mr. Irrelevant. He was an Arizona kid, so you have that homegrown thing here. But I think that's more of a testament to Kyle Shanahan and the system as opposed to Geno Smith taking the reins of an organization that had no identity and said, you know what? It's going to be fine. It's not going to be that in 2013, but it's going to be fine. And I do think it's Geno Smith.
Yeah, I actually do agree with you. I think that while the Brock Purdy story has been pretty fascinating, I know. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm sorry. I had to do it once. I did. I know. But despite that, Geno's been doing it all year. And I know that Seattle's kind of taken some L's here recently that's knocked him out of really being in MVP contention. But I expected this Geno Smith thing to kind of fall off at some during the year. And he's played great football. I mean, he's thrown, I think, 2 touchdown passes multiple weeks in a row now. I mean, Geno Smith has played the best football of his career. And while the Brock Purdy story is good, you got to give credit where it's due. Now, what I will say is, though, I think that with San Francisco's roster and with Kyle Shanahan coaching the offense, I mean, there's no doubt to me that San Francisco can still win the Super Bowl if they play it right. If Shanahan has a great game, they get a couple of turnovers on defense. In the NFL and in sports in general, we can't deny the factor that is luck. You need a little bit of luck to win a championship. And I think San Francisco is still well within range of getting a little luck to win the championship. So I agree it's Geno Smith right now. But if Brock Purdy takes San Francisco deep into the playoffs, I think at some point he'll probably overcome the Geno Smith story, and that'll be the bigger story.
Now,
but with that said, who do you think is going to win this game?
I'm picking San Francisco every game for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Because this is winning time, and this is what we've seen from them over the last couple of years. Aside from the 3-13 debacle they had, like I'm picking them to win every game because of everything you just said. Now, let me ask you this, because we like to have our listeners think, okay, and not just talk about what everybody else talks about. If you come to the playoffs, okay, and say they win or say they get to their first game or win their first game, Jimmy Garoppolo is then healthy, okay? And I will say one thing. If Deebo Samuel doesn't come back this year, I don't agree with you. Deebo Samuel has to be there to make up for Brock Purdy's shortcomings because he's a kid and he's never played football before in the NFL. Like there's only so much of a ceiling. He
was a 7th round pick. He was the last pick of the draft. I mean, we know
you need to encapsulate him. Everybody needs to be on board talent-wise for that to work.
Right.
Now, say you could choose between an 80% Jimmy Garoppolo or Brock Purdy, who would probably be riding high. I think they're the 3rd seed right now in the NFC. If they're riding high with Brock Purdy, do you start, who's probably the better quarterback with the higher floor in Jimmy Garoppolo, or do you ride with Brock Purdy?
I think you go with Brock Purdy because sometimes ignorance is bliss. And Jimmy Garoppolo knows the times he's failed in the playoffs. Jimmy Garoppolo knows how hard it is to actually go win a Super Bowl. While that experience, some people may say that's incredibly valuable, and I agree, sometimes there is something about just not knowing what you don't know and just riding high and having confidence and not worrying about how daunting of a task winning a Super Bowl is because you've been there and lost. You're just playing ball. I think Brock Purdy at 100% is the better play than Jimmy Garoppolo at 80%.
Yeah, and I equate that to a really good point. NCAA men's basketball tournament. That's the perfect microcosm, and women's, obviously, but like the March Madness situation is these are 18 and 19-year-old kids that have no idea the true magnitude of what they're playing in. Like they do because it's fun and it's Jerry World, it's the Carrier Dome, or it's wherever. But like they have no idea how big those games are that they're playing in. So and that gives them just go play basketball like you have your entire life. So yeah,
sometimes if you don't know the stakes, it's actually better because you just don't worry about things like that and you play ball. But either way, I'm with you. I think San Francisco wins this game. At the end of the day, their defense is just absolutely ridiculous. And if you want to have an absolutely ridiculous defense at home, then you have to check out SimpliSafe. Guys, I'm not just reading an ad to you. I have SimpliSafe at my house. I have indoor, outdoor cameras, door entry sensors, motion detectors. There's a panic button that you can install in your master bedroom or in your kid's room or something like that so that if something goes wrong, you have that available to you right on your person. I mean, it's fantastic. But it's not just the technology. I mean, the Fast Protect technology is fantastic and it's exclusive to SimpliSafe. But it also comes with 24/7 professional monitoring agents. Guys, they contact you so quickly. If something seems amiss, they check with you. Hey, is this a real alert? Is this an issue? I mean, I have been absolutely thoroughly impressed with SimpliSafe. It's probably why they were named Best Home Security of 2022 by U.S. News and World Report for the 3rd straight year. They were awarded that. So make sure you guys don't miss your chance to save big on my favorite security system. Get 40% off any new system at simplisafe.com/lockedonnfl today. That's SimpliSafe with an I, simplisafe.com/lockedonnfl. There is no safe like SimpliSafe.
Locked on NFL Thursday, your team every day. I am one of your hosts, Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. He is Tyler Rowland of Locked on Titans. Follow him on Twitter at Tic Tac Titans, and all of the Tennessee Titans news you can choke down Monday through Friday, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Do you think Ryan Tannehill is a good flyer for the rest of the season for fantasy football? I had Kyler Murray knocked down. Like, I know that the volume isn't there for throwing the ball, but he's thrown 2 touchdowns 3 of the last 5 games. Like, he's starting to show playoff Ryan Tannehill. And I know we're going completely off skew here, but like he's starting to emerge as that guy that, tail end of the season, he's going to step it up like he has over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think Tannehill will be fine. The big issues with the Titans right now aren't Ryan Tannehill. It's the worst offensive line in the NFL, and the Titans, once again, for a second year in a row, have the most injuries in the NFL and have used the most players on their roster this year. Those are the bigger issues, but yeah, Ryan Tannehill would be a nice flyer. I would say every week but Dallas. Dallas's defense and Micah Parsons against Dennis Daly at left tackle is going to be a nightmare, but if you are looking for a replacement to Kyler Murray, for fantasy purposes, I think Ryan Tannehill is probably out there in your leagues. I think he'd be a pretty nice fit because they're gonna have to pass to stay with San Diego or with Los Angeles. They're still San Diego in all of our hearts. We know that. Sure. But that is a good reminder that we are going to be talking about the best games of Week 15 to cap off the show. But obviously, before we get into that, we got a little wild card segment here to discuss. Looking at the current wild card teams, which of them do we think has the best chance to make a Super Bowl run? And Alex, I'm going to change the rules a little bit on you here. There is one team right now in a wild card position that I will not let you use, and it's the Cincinnati Bengals. My expectation is the Bengals will at some point take over the Ravens, who are without Lamar Jackson, and win the AFC North. Even if that doesn't happen, I'm not letting you pick Cincinnati since they went to the Super Bowl last year. So a wild card team other than the Bengals, who I personally think are the best team in the entire NFL, who are you picking?
I got a barf bag next to me, but I'm going to take the Dallas Cowboys. And it's not because they have the best record, and it's not because Dak's been great, and it's not because Tony Pollard's been a Pro Bowler, it seems like this year, when he gets the run. But it seems like they're starting to gel as a 1990s team where they're going to run the ball, they're going to beat you up, and they're going to throw touchdowns to their tight end and their stud wide receivers. Now, I know that they don't have as much talent at the wide receiver position. CeeDee Lamb's been fine, but that's not – we're going to be talking about CeeDee Lamb being unhappy with his targets next year. We're not going to do it this year because we found that Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard are the way to win games for this team. And I think that they give Philadelphia the biggest trouble. I think that because even though they haven't played up to the level of the bright lights that they're under way more than anybody thinks they should be, they're used to that. They've played those games. They play in all the primetime games, win or loss. So when the lights get brightest in the playoffs, that's not going to phase them, even if they have to go on the road as much as maybe some other teams. So I think it's going to be Dallas. I'm going to throw up, but I think it's going to be them.
You know what? Honestly, that was probably my number one pick. I probably would have gone with that personally. I do like Dallas, and at the end of the day, it comes down to having weapons on offense, a quarterback that I trust, and an excellent pass rush. With that in mind, the team that I'm going to pick is a team that we're going to see tonight play football, and it is the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers are 7-6. Right now, they wouldn't even be in the playoffs. The Patriots would have the final wild card spot in the AFC. I think the Chargers find a way to get into the playoffs, and if they do that, then they will be on a hot streak. They will be playing their best football at the end of the year, which is what is most important in the NFL, is to play your best football the last month of the season into the playoffs and keep that momentum going. Try to ride hot all the way to the Super Bowl. The Chargers have an incredible quarterback. Yeah, Herbert's had his ups and downs. If you're a QB wins guy, then you probably think Herbert's a little bit overrated. But we all saw the talent that he has. And I think they showed a graphic, and as someone who covers the Titans, I heard Mike Vrabel mention it earlier this week in the press conferences, that Justin Herbert has the most yards passing outside of the pocket. So he's not only a guy that can kill you with a rocket arm in the pocket, he can play make and get outside of the pocket, which is really what the elite quarterbacks in the NFL do now. Mahomes, Allen, even Joe Burrow, who isn't as quite the athlete that maybe these three guys are, but that's what he does. A guy like, unfortunately, Kyler Murray, who you're well aware of, plays that style. And that's what the modern elite quarterback can do. Herbert can do that with the best of them talent-wise, and as his weapons get healthy. Austin Eckler looks good. They've run the ball a little bit more with a little bit more success. obviously Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Josh Palmer, even DeAndre Carter is a nice weapon in the offense to be used versatily. That's all stuff that I can trust and count on. Then on defense, at the end of the day, you have Asante Samuel Jr. and Derwin James, who I think are playmakers in the back end. And then you have two dynamic pass rushers in Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. Bosa is expected to come back to practice this week. Of course, all of the Chargers' best players on defense coming back to practice the week that they play the most injured team in the NFL. That's just what it's like being a Titans fan. But I think they have the things that I think are most important in football: playmakers in the back end on defense, pass rush, a quarterback who is elite and can make plays, and then targets to bail him out when things get hairy. I think the Chargers have a really good chance to get hot here and make a run deep into the playoffs. Is there any other teams you want to throw in the hat? Because I got to tell you, I didn't have a lot of options after the Cowboys went off the board.
Yeah. No, I mean, no, because, there are no teams right now outside of the playoffs. Like, I know the Chargers are tied, as you mentioned, but, there's no team that is a powerhouse that's they had a bad run, they had some injuries, and they're now making their push. I guess the Chargers are the closest thing to that.
Closest thing to it.
This isn't going to be a 6 or 7 seed unless it's the Chargers that are going to win the Super Bowl. It's just not going to happen. Washington and the Giants, they're not good enough. No. And then in the Patriots,
Seattle, if they get in, Detroit,
it's just not you could talk about Miami, but unless Tua has a second act in this where he remembers how to play football again, you feel like that's not going to happen. What Tua has shown in the last 2 weeks was what everybody feared what was going to happen at the beginning of the season. He forgot how to play football the last 2 weeks, which is just what happened in San Francisco should never happen to a quarterback ever. That's elite, ever. That was an embarrassment against the 49ers. And it's just, I know they put up some points, but still. So yeah, I feel like if you told me it was Dallas and the Chargers in the Super Bowl, I wouldn't be shocked. Because I don't think there's more than, I take the Chiefs, even though they're not. I've told you this, the Chiefs. I think the Eagles at this point, Jalen Hurts is so good at football that they have to be the odds-on favorite to come out of the NFC, even though they're the 1 seed. I know that, but they've got to be now it's okay, I believe you, and we'll find out more. I think Saturday night against the Cowboys, we're really going to find out Saturday night against the Cowboys who the Eagles and Cowboys are.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an absolutely fantastic game to watch, and I think at the end of the day, like you said, the Chargers and the Cowboys are the only teams that have the roster talent that I think could even make a push out of the teams that are left. So, with that in mind,
yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm just excited. My favorite segment of the week is ahead, and I can't help myself sometimes.
Yeah, you're like a kid at 9:59 on Christmas Eve. I don't know. Do you open stockings or anything on Christmas Eve?
My mom would allow us to open one present on Christmas Eve, and we do the stockings and the rest of the presents on Christmas.
An absolute sweetheart. We've shaked it up. We've done a couple different offensive game plans, whether it be the stockings night before. We've done a couple different things, but it's weird talking about it as almost a 40-year-old man still talking about that stuff. Anyways, coming up next, best games of the week, Tyler's favorite segment of the week. First, BetOnline.net. This episode of Locked On NFL is brought to you by BetOnline.net. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to basketball and World Cup. We've got it all at BetOnline.net. If you love sports podcasts, you can even find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. And on a very, very serious note, I know we like to have fun on this show, but with the holidays coming up and the holidays around, it's always important to listen to this, but also, especially around the holidays when people tend to imbibe, people tend to let loose a little bit more. You're hanging out with some friends and putting back a few drinks, and a few becomes too many. The evening comes to an end. People start to head out. You think of calling for a ride. Nah, you live nearby. You can make it home. Okay, it's no big deal. That's what you say, okay? What are the odds you'll get pulled over anyways? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? Your insurance goes up. You lose your license. You lose your job. You total your car. You kill someone. Everyone knows about the risk of drunk driving. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop people from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe, plan ahead, get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over.
Locked on NFL Thursday. I am Tyler Rowland, Locked on Titans, here with Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals. My favorite segment of the week. Let's talk about the best games of week 15. Before we get into it, I want to thank you guys again for making Locked on NFL your first listen every day. As for your second listen, check out Locked on Sports Today. The biggest games, the biggest stories, instant reactions, game recaps, and the take of the day. We got it all for you at Locked on Sports Today. It's going to be available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. But Alex, looking at this slate, the number one game that sticks out to me that I'm excited to watch is the old Tom Brady, or just Tom Brady, against the new Tom Brady in Joe Burrow with the Cincinnati Bengals. I have said before, I think the Bengals are the best team in the NFL right now. I think they have the best roster. I trust them. I think they're going to go to the Super Bowl. Tampa Bay, looking ugly, not playing their best, in true danger of giving away this division. The Bucs are at home. And like I said, Joe Burrow, we talked just a second ago, we talked about all of the mobile quarterbacks. Kyler and Herbert and Mahomes and Allen and Hurts and all these guys who can run around. You know who doesn't run around like that? Joe Burrow. You know who doesn't need to run around like that to cut you up? Joe Burrow. He's got great pocket movement, but no one's going to mistake him for some supreme athlete who scrambles around and does all this crazy stuff. No, he just moves smoothly within the pocket and dices you up. I know that Joe Burrow is more athletic than Tom Brady was, but this is the modern NFL. There aren't any Tom Bradys left. Him, Matt Ryan, a couple, everybody has a bit of mobility nowadays as a young quarterback. So to me, Joe Burrow is as close to what Tom Brady is, not accolades-wise, but style of play. Joe Burrow is as close to Tom Brady as any young elite quarterback in the NFL. I want to see if Tom Brady can come out there and remind Joe Cool that he's still the best in the league at this dice you up from the pocket style. I think the Bucs are at a real crossroads with their season and whether they're going to be a real team or not. They could lose the division if they lose this game. So I think that's a very, very interesting game to watch. It should be an excellent television product.
Yeah, I've got two. I've got one with my head and one with my heart. Okay. I'm going to go with the one with my head. It's Miami facing Buffalo. Here's the thing. I'm not going to say good chance. There's a chance the Dolphins don't make the playoffs. If the Dolphins continue on this slide, and this is what happens during winning time, and this is not to pile on Tua. He was the MVP before he hit his head on the field. Okay, he was there. I mean, Jalen Hurts hadn't really emerged all the way there. It was him and Josh Allen at the top, and Tua looked like somebody that we had never. It looked like Mike McDaniel unlocked something that we had never seen before. Now he's kind of come back to earth, and they've got some injuries. Tyreek Hill's hobbled, But I want to see, it's going to be cold Saturday night in Buffalo. Miami is not a cold place. Not sure if you knew that. Spoiler alert. It'll be interesting to see what happens when a air-it-out West Coast offense playing in Florida goes to Buffalo against a team who is just a microcosm of a dude who's half drunk jumping and breaking a table. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter Buffalo. They will.
That's how Josh Allen plays football.
That's how. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. So this is it's not just about Tua making up for what's happened the last couple weeks. It's about going into Buffalo where Buffalo needs to win. This is a must-win game for Buffalo. Interdivision.
For the number one seed.
Right. It'll give them some wiggle room. It'll give them a number one seed and give them home field when they play Patrick Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is what their season was built up for. So if they can beat Buffalo, it'll completely erase the last 2 weeks from people's memory. Now, my one from my heart, because I'm the biggest truther of this guy on the planet, I give you a couple. Who's my favorite son?
Daniel Jones.
No. The original, the oldest brother is Jared Goff. So Jared Goff,
the oldest version.
Jared Goff is the oldest brother of the triumvirate of Daniel Jones, Taylor Heineke, and Jared Goff. No, Jared Goff was the first. And I'm like, you know what? Dan Campbell's changing, and I talked about this on my podcast this week. Look at what Dan Campbell has done to Detroit. Not about the wins and losses. This is the most fun Lions fans have had maybe ever watching a team.
Yeah.
And this is like, their defense sucks. It'll get better. Okay. They've got massive amounts of draft picks coming. They have 2 probably top 12 picks this year. They're both probably going to use on defensive players. Jared Goff has reemerged as a guy that you fear. Opposing defenses fear. You've got all the weapons, and them going to New York. It's like, this is a future game. This is my heart game. This is a future game.
Right.
Mike White, are you kidding me? Oh, there's 1,000 points scored in this game. So that's where I'm at with my heart.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I got one with my heart and one just, because I want to see it play out. Giants Commanders, Sunday Night Football, both 7-5-1.
Yeah.
I mean, didn't they tie last time? So, I think this is going to be a tight one. It's going to be fun to watch. But I got to mention, Chargers and Titans, both 7-6 in Los Angeles. The Chargers are the hot team that everybody loves again after their performance against the Dolphins. The Titans are, the ugly, strong person in the physique contest. Yeah, they're incredibly strong. You can count on them, blah, 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 but they're looking kind of ugly right now. Which direction are these teams going to go? The Chargers look like they could be ascending to make that run that we're talking about, get in the playoffs, be somebody that teams don't want to play. The Titans look like a team that may walk backwards into the playoffs if Jacksonville doesn't catch them after that beat down last week. These are 2 teams with the same record going different directions. Can the Chargers keep it going? Can the Titans fix it? I think that's going to be one of the most entertaining football games of the weekend, regardless of the fact that obviously I'm a Titans guy.
The Chargers should win this game, but the Chargers never win games like this. And the Titans
Exactly.
do.
And the Titans win games like this
that's exactly
that nobody thinks that they're going to win.
Yeah. This started in Baltimore against when Lamar Jackson, did he throw the ball 75 times that game? He threw the ball a lot.
In the playoff
in the playoff game. Yeah. That's when it started with Tennessee.
Times.
Where it's like, no, I think might have been double-digit underdogs in that game. I can't remember. It was a long time ago. But, that's when it started with Ryan Tannehill. Where it's like, okay, they can win with this guy. The defense was a little bit better. The offensive line wasn't as banged up. But, and they had better players. But these are games that Ryan Tannehill, say what you want about him or not, wins. He just does. And you figure it out. Maybe Robert Woods will emerge finally as a guy that you can trust as a veteran wide receiver. He's played in big games before. And the Chargers, Brandon Staley finds a way to lose games. He just does. Anthony Lynn found ways to lose games. And the Chargers, that's just the Chargers. I'm still picking the Chargers, though, because I think really good players can circumvent and overcome huge stigmas of an organization.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it'll be basically, these 2 teams have trends. Will the trends break in one way or another? I think that's something that we need to be watching for. But with that in mind, that is our favorite games of Week 15. That is going to do it for a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in. Enjoy the weekend of football.